With no further ado, the hold button. So, with no further ado, my name is Dr. Craig Weiner, and this is Transformational Dialogues at its best with Mira Steinbrecher, architect, and here to really talk about the idea of home. And as we said in the flyers, home is where the heart is, and we're going to explore what that sense of homeness is tonight. So I just want to start off by giving you that wonderful softball. Why are we here tonight, and what if you could deliver one message to everybody tonight? What do you want them to know about your work and about the sense of home?
I have been noticing over the years how much a sense of home really, really grounds me, and I've also watched clients over that time become grounded into the places that they live. I've also noticed that it doesn't matter to me whether I own the place or not. Home is where I lay my head. Home is where I feel the safest. Home is where home is the place that I come to when I need some refuge. And what I've learned as my own spiritual path has developed is that by taking care of home and taking care of my home, I become more at home in myself. And I want that for everyone. I really, really do. And I've worked a lot with clients doing that. I've worked with friends making their own transitions and coming into those places that really seat them and work for them. And it's just one of those things that it's the thing that keeps me from doing the work that I do, and in lots of ways it's my mission.
So how is that different? I mean, don't most people think of their house or their home as their home place? So what is it that you're speaking that's a little deeper or a little bit different than everybody thinks of their house as their home? No?
What I notice, what I've really been watching, I've been on the island for 20 years, and I've watched people from before the time they were born until they've gone off to college. Ross just came in, and his daughter's one of those people I've watched grow, and it's so interesting to me just to even watch children as they come into themselves, as they come into their families and their homes, and then as they fledge and grow out of their homes. It's really been fun for me to watch how that process works for people, and how universal that process really is. I used to have my office near the corner of 2nd and Anthony's in Langley, next to the little pocket park, across from the phone and the public restrooms, and a block from the Youth Connection. I called it the Bermuda Triangle, because that's where the 13 and 14-year-olds came to misbehave. And what I really discovered in that was that the behaviors were the same every spring. It's just the faces changed. And it was such an important lesson in how we transition, and how those kids who used to be quite content to be at home with their families and doing that stuff now ran in packs, and that is part of their fledging and their letting go.
How do you connect the transition into teenhood with their sense of homeness? Is it a stable place from which they get to express? How would you speak to that?
I think for the best homes, that it's the place they go back to when they need feeding or watering or entertaining. But some of them don't have that, and that's the piece that I think is one of the real tragedies of our time. But I've also watched people open up their homes to other people's children, and places where those people can feel safe, or where they, sometimes just where they have company, or
I think that always said a lot. What was it about those homes in the neighborhood that all the kids tended to go to when they went somewhere? And there were those.
Right.
Did everybody have, like, either for your own children or for you, a place that basically you would go to and would be like the place to hang out? And it wasn't that they were necessarily more permissive, or wasn't necessarily any one characteristic that you could name. You just wanted to go there because it felt good.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it about that space or that home that makes it that attraction factor so high, do you think? The people, the place, the space?
Some of it is about who lives there, and that's something we can talk about in a while. But it's that sense of welcoming, that sense of safety, that sense of acceptance. It seems in my own sort of growing up time, it was the place where people liked me. And I think that's really important, and that I liked being there, and that's what I think we all can work on in our own homes. What are the things in our homes that we like, and that we like being with, and that comfort us, and that comfort others? What are the things that invite us to be both who we are and to relax? And there's a piece of relaxation in a real home that I think it's hard to define, but it's one of those places, even as kids, we could feel like, oh, I can just relax here. Oh,
Like things you knew were not like slip covers.
right.
Right, and places that felt like you had to tiptoe through the room, that kind of clearly not that.
Right, yes, yeah, clearly not. I had one friend whose mother had a lot of, they lived at the Coast Guard station, and they had all hardwood floors and all runners and area rugs and orientals and things. And, oh boy, you just didn't mess a rug. You just didn't. It was the place I really learned to pick up my feet. And yet at the same time, it was a place where I felt comfortable and welcome, because I had learned to pick up my feet and straighten the rugs I messed. So there's always those house rules, but you know, one of the things that I really responded to when I was thinking about and preparing for this was something that one of my favorite writers and philosophers, and actually in some ways spiritual teachers, wrote, is John O'Donohue, the Irish poet and writer, who this is his book called To Bless the Space Between Us, and it's a book of blessings but also a book of philosophy. And in his chapter 4 called Homecomings, he says, one can undertake any voyage if the destination is home. Humble or grand, home is where your heart belongs. When it is a place of shelter and love, there is no place like home. It is then one of the sweetest words in any language. It suggests a nest where intimacy and belonging foster identity and individuality. In a sense, the notion of home is a continuation of the human body, which is, after all, our original and primary home on earth. It houses the mind, heart, and spirit. To be, we need to be home. When a place to belong is assured, the adventure of growth can begin with great promise. And that's the piece that I really think ties into this dialogue tonight. That as we become home in our homes, it helps us to become home in our bodies, and it allows us to really be fully who we are, because the temple of the body is now safe so that the temple of the soul can flourish in its fullest sense.
You know, it was interesting because when we first began the conversation, it was, wow, we've never really had a dialogue about houses before. You know, it didn't kind of fit in a simplified sense that, you know, most of the events we have here on different healing modalities or different ways of living one's life, always with the idea of how do we transform or change our life for the better or richer or deeper. But in the discussions that ensued was really that sense of homeness is really what is at the heart of any transformational process, is that we come back home. And in that acceptance and in that place of, you know, we can best express who we are. And home in a structure is really just that outward manifestation, but it fosters, if it really is a feeling of home, that inward sense of homeness that allows us to then go out and be as wildly expressive as we can be. So I love that duality of that, and that poem speaks to it well, I think.
And one of the things I've noticed in myself is that I can absolutely tell the state of my beingness or my mind or my spirit by looking around my house at any point in time and going, ooh, it's a little chaotic in there. Oh.
Anybody else likes that?
And so sometimes I just really need to clean up my home.
Which way do you go first? Do you clean up your life, which then causes a cleanup of your home, or do you clean up your home to clean up your life?
Oh, it usually starts from the outside and works its way in. But I have to have that click, that cue from inside before I get out the vacuum or start picking things up and putting things away. And so I actually use my home as an indicator. It's the canary. If the canary's not singing, I'd better pay attention. And I'll bet every one of you can do that in your own way. I think it's really important that each of us find those metaphors and those cues so that we can really pay attention to ourselves in a way that's more than just about sitting and meditating or doing our exercises or vacuuming. I mean, because it's all tied together.